Please be seated. God calls us, you and me, to St. Mark's today to hear a fishing story. 4 men leave their family fishing business to become disciples of a new traveling rabbi with no credentials. It's 5:30 p.m. and all the national news stations have this as their human interest story. Today, 4 well-known fishermen in Capernaum on the northwest coast of the Sea of Galilee drop their nets and follow an unknown preacher. Lester Holt with NBC Nightly News introduces Richard Engel, chief foreign correspondent, sitting on the shore with the distraught Zebedee, the father of James and John. Well, we're still adjusting to the shock. I was standing in one of our boats with our 2 sons and our hired hands, mending our nets from last night's fishing, and suddenly this man called Jesus walks up and says, "Follow me." My hired hands and I shrug our shoulders and roll our eyes, but my 2 sons look right into those big, dark brown eyes and literally drop their nets and follow him. I was furious. I yelled as they took off with him, and I said a few things I can't repeat. Yeah. You know, fishermen are known for our colorful language. Later in the afternoon, James and John do send a message that they will return soon. On PBS Evening News, Judy Woodruff on special assignment is at the modest home of the wife of Simon Peter, another man who walked away from his fishing boat today. Yes, I'm Simon's wife. I only have a few minutes to talk. My husband not only left all these fish in his boat, but this man called Jesus changed my husband's name to Peter. And to add to my distress, my mother is sick with a high fever. But later, Simon, or Peter as he now calls himself, sends back word, "Get the fish." Don't salt them down. Clean and prepare them. Call in the neighbors, and we will have a big fish fry at our house tonight. And Jesus will cure your mother, and she can help serve. This morning, as we hear the stories about these 4 fishermen, we must ponder what all this means for us. So first, let's think about how we got here this morning. I don't mean did we come in a Chevy pickup or an SUV. What brought us here? Do you realize that Matthew's gospel today is telling our story? Do you hear it? Jesus is walking along the Sea of Galilee and calls 4 disciples, but whether we realize it or not, Jesus also calls us here at this place this morning. Perhaps you think we're here because your roots or your family or your friends are here, or you like the sermons, or you like the mystical feeling when you enter this beautiful building, or maybe you're transformed by the liturgy, the music, the candles, or you want your children to experience something you vaguely remember from your childhood that you cannot explain. This is how my husband and I were called back to the church almost 50 years ago. We wanted our children exposed to what we experienced growing up in a Christian community, even though we doubted that we still needed it. Do not ever be embarrassed by your motives. God will use every possible means, and even probably and especially our children, to call us back to Him. for God loves us and them so dearly. Jesus begins his ministry by calling extremely ordinary people. They're uncomprehending of Jesus and his mission. But for some reason, Jesus chooses not to do his ministry without them. Time and again, they will disappoint him. Yet he will stick with them like glue, give them all he has, and lead them into the kingdom. William Willimon says, if you're a God, why do you need a bunch of amateurs to work with you? But Jesus does not work alone, but joins hands with ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Jesus recruits people who have made awful life choices. Jesus invades the most hapless lives and fills them with light. He sneaks up on people who are thinking not about God, but lunch, and smacks them upside the head with love and says, I'm going to change the world, transform the future, radically rearrange the present, and guess who's going to help me? It's a strange way to run a railroad, but this is the way God gets the job done. Follow me. God has plans for us. God has a ministry for us. Realize this is good news. For the saddest of all sad things is an uncalled, unclaimed life. Listen again to this morning's story. Follow me, and I will make you fish for people. We start to worry about, do we have the right stuff? Even to consider being a disciple. Would Jesus choose us? And if by chance he does, will he make us leave home, our job, and go to Africa or South America? The answer is in the rest of Matthew. Read on. Note that the disciples stay near their homes for quite some time. They remain in Galilee for the next 18 chapters of Matthew, and then return there after the resurrection. Do you have other concerns about this call? Barbara Brown Taylor believes the most powerful part of Jesus' call to his disciples is not that the disciples decide something on their own. Something happens to them, something almost beyond their control. To stress the decision-making of the disciples is putting the accent on the wrong syllable. In that God-drenched moment of their turning to follow, the miracle happens. Their lives flow in the same direction as God's. There is an openness to a connection present since birth, since conception. This story of the call is not a hero story, but a miracle story. As miraculous as the feeding of the 5,000 or the raising of the dead. This is not a story about the power of human beings to change our lives. This is a story about the power of God to walk right up to a quartet of fishermen and to us and work a miracle, creating disciples where there were none just moments before. Remember, this is our story of being open, swept into the flow and passionate vision of God's will as we turn ourselves over to God's call. It's going to be a different story for each of us at our particular stage of life. This call comes not just once, but constantly as Jesus seeks us out to go farther and deeper, open to new possibilities. Sometimes following Jesus may mean staying home. At other times it may mean letting the hired servants go and taking care of Zebedee when he gets too old to fish. Sometimes following may mean casting the same old nets in a new way or for new reasons. And sometimes the call is doing something different with the fish we catch, or spending the money we bring at market in a different way. It may mean reorganizing the whole fishing business so that the jobless down at the pier have work to do and everyone receives a decent wage. It may mean doing less every day, not more. So there is time to watch the sunlight changing the water and see how the fish leap out of the water at dusk, celebrating, outsmarting us one more time. Are you old enough to remember a nature program, Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, which aired on Sunday night television? One memorable program focuses on a mother elephant seal in Argentina and her newborn pup. The mother, now famished, leaves her pup on the shore to find food for both of them. She returns to a different part of the beach and calls for her baby. Other mothers return, also calling their pups, producing a wild cacophony. The camera stays with the single mother as she calls her pup and listens for the response. And following each other's voices and scents, the mother and pup are reunited. The host, Marlon Perkins, explains that from birth, the sound and scent of the pup are imprinted in the mother's memory, and the sound and the scent of the mother are imprinted in the pup's memory. A friend watching with us turns around and says, "We are imprinted with the memory of God, and God is imprinted with the memory of us. And even if it takes a lifetime, we will hear God's call, smell God's scent. We acknowledge and honor God's imprint deep inside of us, and God slowly walks toward us, makes direct eye contact, and once again calls out, 'Follow me.'"